Do you think Trump is going to go away now? Or is there any chance that he's going to run in 2024? What's your ideas around this?
I have no idea, and I don't dare make any predictions because all predictions are aging very badly at the moment. Can you think of a single person who has made a good prediction in the last 5 years? I can't think of one.
Morgan Housel, who's a financial expert, tweeted at the start of last year saying about how much time people had spent analyzing the 2010 until 2019 decade of trading and extrapolating out all of the different charts for the coronavirus to come in and just totally sideswipe everything that they'd done.
Yeah, that's the thing. The political environment is very unstable at the moment. So I daren't predict, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 2024 he runs again. I expect that he will. And I think he would be a powerful force if he did. Less powerful now that he's been deplatformed from every Silicon Valley platform. And that's what the Silicon Valley cartel know. They know that this has reach and influence and power. So really, if I were Donald Trump and I were thinking about it, I would choose an alternative social media network and make that the network that I used. And then you can get probably hundreds of millions of people to at least look at it occasionally, if not join it and actively participate. But I mean, the social media alternatives, Parler was doing fantastically well until they got deplatformed. And Gab is also doing fantastically well, and they can't be deplatformed because as I understand it, Gab are responsible for their own infrastructure, although I've been told that's not entirely correct. So I'm not sure about the details really, but basically Andrew Torber, who runs Gab, has been deplatformed in the same way that Parler was. And so he is protected against that. They can't do that twice. And so Trump should choose a platform that Silicon Valley can't deplatform and get to work. He's got a few years if he wants to do it. He can do this. You know, he's got the money, he's got the time, he's got the political capital to do it as well, especially as the MAGA base generally don't feel that this was legitimate. They think that this was a stolen election, whether you agree with them or not. So if Trump starts getting back into the action, I think that he'll do very well. The thing is, it also might be a wise political move to actually let the situation breathe for a while, right? Because what Joe Biden is doing at the moment makes him, by his own standards, kind of look like a dictator. He was the one criticizing excessive use of executive orders, and then 30 of them plus in his first week. And it's like, okay, what are you doing? You know, and the radical changes, you know, bringing in critical race theory training, all of the changes to the military, with transgenderism and things like this. And it's like, okay, these are sweeping changes that Biden is making, and they're not good changes. They're not changes that the general public actually endorses. You know, how many of the general public want frontline female soldiers? Probably not that many of them. You know, it's very much the sort of progressive wing of their party that's driving the agenda. And Biden's just leaping, you know, both feet in. You know, he doesn't seem to care about any objections now. And so it's like, right, okay, let him govern badly.
Give him enough rope.
Exactly. Give him enough rope. So I mean, Trump waits like 6 months or a year before getting like fully engaged back into politics, then he might find himself with a very weak opposition where they've overextended. You know, they've tried to impeach him, which I don't think is going to work because I don't think they're going to get the votes. And so that'll be a waste of their own political capital. It'll give people like AOC time to sort of march around on the field of victory and be really insufferable and put a lot of people's backs up just by the way that they operate. And I think that's happening. And the Republicans have kind of been routed after the Capitol riots. And so they give them time to sort of regroup, allow Biden to ruin things, and then come back in a big storm and hopefully take it. But again, not a prediction, just a kind of fantasy of what I think could happen.
Dude, so one thing that Malice said, which really, really struck a chord with me, is people thought that Trump was the river when in fact he was the dam. A lot of right-leaning Americans felt like they were being represented by Trump. And look what happens when you take away that dam. They no longer have anybody that's speaking for them. They no longer have anyone that they feel is representing them. So fuck it, insurrection.
There is definitely a strong undercurrent of the Republic is over in a lot of the Republican circles now, which is not good. You know, it's not good at all.
The most powerful country with the most nukes in the world.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. But what it is if America becomes consumed with its own internal disputes, then people like China and Russia are always watching from the margins and seeking to. I mean, China's already been violating Taiwanese airspace and things like this. Right, okay, this has not taken long. Joe Biden is not going to have a firm hand with China like Trump did, and there will not be to the benefit of the United States. I think you're really right about the dam thing. Trump really seemed to have been holding back a lot of initiatives that really seem to have a negative intention towards the average American person, in favor of fringe activist groups who have been making their voices very well heard, but don't represent a very sizable constituency, even necessarily of the minorities they claim to represent. Like, for example, feminists, like very few women are actually feminists. Like less than 10% of women self-identify as a feminist. And whereas 80% of women will say, well, yeah, I think there should be equality between men and women. So the overwhelming majority agree with the basic feminist premise, but they won't identify as feminists because they don't want to join that activist group because they can see that this is the man-hating lunatics, right? And so the Biden is catering to these fringe internet activists with everything. And so like, let it go. It'll be insufferable, but when this has gone on for enough time, hopefully someone from the Republicans who is capable and competent and decent will come along. I've noticed that they're really going hard on a senator called Josh Hawley at the moment because he wanted to represent his constituents' concerns about the lack of apparent transparency and their belief in the invalidity of the election and the electoral process. And he is being treated as if he led some sort of armed insurrection into the Capitol, which he didn't. He was in there giving his testimony when the event occurred. So the fact that they're treating him as if he was leading it is very interesting to me. And he hasn't backed down on this either. He got deplatformed from his book and he hasn't backed down. And so I'm thinking someone like him is probably, because Trump's going to be in his late 70s by 2024. And as vital as Trump is, as energetic as Trump is, that is old, and it is a very stressful job and etc. But Josh Hawley looks like he's in his 40s, the right kind of age to start pushing forward with this kind of, he might not be that way inclined. He might be a Wall Street guy, he might have been bought off. He might not be a populist in any way, but that's not the impression I've got from him, actually. He seems to be interested in representing the sort of rural working class and the rural interests. And someone like that is definitely necessary for the American political system if it wants to survive, I think. I think if one side is just not represented, and one of the things you notice about the Democrats is they are going hard on their Republican opponents. They are trying to extirpate them as much as possible. And that's the exact wrong maneuver to take if you think you're a legitimate winner. You don't want to punish the opposition for losing. That's not what a democratic system is meant to be. But instead, they're acting like they didn't win. They're acting like they've done something wrong. They're acting like they've got guilty consciences. And I don't think it's sustainable. I think they'll overreach.